So the best I've seen for this was actually created in an insurance company. So a guy named Tom Hilgart was essentially the CLO. He was in a different title, but same role, of a company called CNA Insurance. And every year when they would do their annual budget, Tom would try to figure out how can he provide some context around the budget to help his business stakeholders see where the money's going in a way which would be easier than looking at a list of 200 programs we were running. And what he did is one of the frameworks he used, the primary one, was to provide a simple 2x2 matrix. And the 2x2 matrix has on the vertical, up at the top, things that are specific to the company, and down at the bottom, things that are generic. And then going from on the left, things that you just kind of need to keep the business going, so things you need to play in the game, but don't distinguish you, versus things on the right, your differentiators, things that are to win the game, to advance the strategy. And now what Tom said is, first thing before he gathered the data, he went around and he talked to some people. He said, if you could allocate your spend any way you wanted to, you probably need something in all these boxes. Where might you end up? And what he said is, maybe 40% is where you want to be. You want to put your largest spend on things that A, have to be specific to you, nobody else can give them to you, and are going to win the game for you. And then everything else you kind of want to minimize, but you're going to have to do it. And maybe you can get away with trying to figure out how to do 20% up here, 30% down here, and really only 10% on generic stuff you need to be in the game. So think about for many organizations, kind of the coaching catalog courses you have as an e-learning catalog, so people can use that as part of their professional development plans. Now, if you happen to be a company which is differentiated on its leadership and coaching qualities, that would change. That program would shift somewhere else. But for a lot of organizations, it would fit in the lower left. What Tom said is, if I can gather data on where our spend goes and see how it compares to a simple framework like this, I can start to raise some eyes with my executives, because this is something the executives can deal with. They can say, yeah, it makes sense for me to push spending to the upper right. If spending's not in the upper right, I should do something about it. Furthermore, what you can do is you can use this to each of your business stakeholders. So you can say, you guys here over in the claim organization, here's your Foursquare. You in the sales organization, here's your Foursquare. You in the IT organization, here's your Foursquare. And you know what? Your Foursquare shouldn't be the same because you have different business needs. But let's talk through with each other what your Foursquares are and see whether or not we feel we're optimized. Because now all of a sudden, I'm not the bad training person who's saying, I'm having a one-on-one with you claims guys, and I've never liked how you did claims training, and this year I'm going to change it this way. Right? Now it's, okay. Anybody have some advice for the claims guys about the fact that they have low quality and no 0% spend up here? Okay. So in fact, this is a little bit of what that looks like, which is, you can take a total allocation of spend. The blues are what the numbers were from the previous chart. The yellows might be what you end up with in your organization. Okay. You can see what the programs are. You can see what the spend is. Again, this is a level at which executives may not be prepared to make a decision on yet. It may not be that I say, God, I'm only spending 10% there and I'm spending 50% there, and I see the first thing I'm spending it on is college degree tuition, and I'm going to cut college degree tuition today. That may not be a decision today, but it may be, what? I understand you guys are thinking that you want to move money from here to here, that you think the two places to move it from are there. I understand that you think that we're spending about right there, but when I look at that, I don't see why we're doing all that compliance work. We don't need that this year. And I can see as I come down here, that maybe this is the right amount of spend in general, but this seems all out of whack to me about where we're spending it. So you can get some validation on what investigations you're going to make to bring back to your stakeholder group that's going to allow to push the conversation forward. So that's a quick overview of making the decision at the program level. So again, there's a reference to that model in the back. That's the, I think, single best model that I've seen for working at that level to give stakeholders a clear understanding. What I skipped over and didn't put in here, because you're probably already doing it anyway, is working to do simple sort of benchmarking for key programs against outside sources. So if you're talking to your IT guy, you probably have some numbers on here's what others are doing for IT training, here's what IT spend is in terms of dollars per year for each professional in the IT group, here's what application rollouts cost per cost of the application versus, you probably have numbers on what your leadership program costs versus comparable companies in the industry for that. So again, that's another great source of providing context, didn't cover that. So the second decision is, we have programs, what are the performance objectives we're pursuing for these programs? And what I'm going to show you here is a framework we've developed over the past, it's probably been a dozen years at this point, for going through this. We typically use for new content development. Okay, so one of your sources of spend during the year is going to be creating new content. This is good for new content development. We have also used it, although less commonly, for re-engineering critical and expensive existing programs. Okay, but it's essentially doing the needs assessment all over again. So you don't typically want to take the time to do that for programs which are already in the field. Okay, so again, my research in other fields, here's advertising. You guys are probably familiar with this quote. A lot of people think, yeah, is my training any different? I don't know. Maybe so, maybe not. It's very difficult to really know. Do I really operationally focus my training the right way? So if you're looking for ways to try to figure out, are we addressing the right objectives with our program? At some point, you have to make the leap from what does the business stakeholder want, which is claims guy wants fewer errors, the IT guys want better client relationships with their outsourced partner plus fewer errors in the code. The sales guys want better customer service skills and fewer complaints. From what those guys want, you have to make a leap to something which you can give to your instructional design team to say, go build this thing. And so, we use performance objectives for that. Now, in terms of trying to figure out what you should spend and how you should invest, you can go to an economist and say, the economist should say, the question you should ask your stakeholder is, well, how much would it be worth to you if I can give you a 1% improvement in sales, for example? A little harder to do with coaching. And then you can go back to the instructional development group and say, tell me about the solutions you can provide. So if I give you more and more money, typically the first bit of money you can make a big whack with, and then each little more bit of money you get less and less impact on. So you have a marginal cost curve line. Say, okay, well, tell me what your marginal cost curve is, and it's a simple conversation for us now to have. To say, well, what we'll do, the training manager and the business sponsor will get together and they'll decide where the marginal cost intersection is, and that's the training we'll build. Right? That's what the economist would say to us. Now, what I'll do is I'll just show, quickly the sort of technique that we've taken to use for this. Now, most of us use some form of learning objectives, performance objectives to spec out what we want our programs to do. So very simple. This is a very simple abstraction of that. Maybe I'm doing a program for claims. Claims reps will do these things. And what we found is, when you go out into the field and gather these, as you typically do by interviewing managers, subject matter experts, you take it back, and you say, okay, I now have a laundry list that's this long from subject matter experts of all the things our new hires should be able to do, our claims people should be able to do. And you say, but we don't really want to cover all that. And you take that to your business stakeholders. They say, no, that's a great list. You did great. You have to cover all that. And you end up getting pushed towards providing training that's very, very thin on each of these points in order to cram it in the time you have. To say, well, so I'll do some quick e-learning, and then that's about what I can do.